thank you for joining. And, it would be great if you could just tell the audience who you are and about Meadow and just give us a little intro.
Yeah, so my name's Hua. I'm one of the founders of Meadow. We are a on-demand platform for medical cannabis delivery, and now actually doctors. So if you would like a recommendation or evaluation from a doctor, uh, they'll come to you in your home.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We found that a lot of people appreciate the privacy, being in their own home and being comfortable, and really kind of having a doctor that can have no judgment and really knows a lot about cannabis to actually um, properly give you the right advice for the medication that you're seeking.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's awesome to hear.
hmm
How did you decide to get involved in the cannabis industry?
Um, let's see. I went to Oaksterdam University.
Hmm.
This was back last February, and I went there originally thinking that I was going to start like an edibles company or something. It was we kind of stumbled upon a lot of pain. So there were a handful of dispensary owners that were there and basically talking about how they're getting ready for the legalization that's happening and the onslaught of like demand and all that, but talking about their tools and what they're actually using, um, it's not ready to help them scale. So, we set out with me and my three co-founders to build something that not only is for us to get delivery and to work with dispensaries, but to give the dispensaries tools to help manage their business. So it's been, yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it at Oaksterdam.
Awesome. So it sounds like, you had one idea that completely ended up flipping because you saw a need in the market and, an opportunity to help existing businesses scale. So you kind of took that opportunity and ran with it.
Yeah, you could say that.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. So, in getting to where you are now, what's a key mistake or failure that you've learned from?
Specifically Meadow, we spend a lot of time developing our mobile apps. So our team is really good at mobile. We're iOS and Android developers, and we basically launch these apps with a high likelihood that they'd get denied by Apple and Google. So we had to kind of retool, and ultimately the app space isn't that friendly toward cannabis companies. So we had to double back and go to work on GetMeadow.com. We wasted a few months there. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes we've made so far.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So maybe, dealing with the challenge of, some of the infrastructure not being there for the cannabis industry and dealing with those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. So with that in mind, I'm wondering what is some advice you can offer to aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I'm asked this a fair amount. So, and the biggest thing have recommended is to be genuine and meet people, to go to meetups, to talk with people in the space, uh, to really make connections and relationships. There are a lot of people that have been in this industry for a long time, and it's your duty to kind of like honor them and respect them and to learn from them because there's so much history that's happened to get us to where we are now. And I think that by being open and learning and making these relationships and taking your time with them can really help someone that's looking to get into space.
Yeah, absolutely. I found the same thing in my venture that, we're new to this space. People like you and I, even a year, 2 years is fairly new compared to the people who have been doing this for decades. So really,
Absolutely,
yeah,
dude. Absolutely.
yeah, so honoring the history and learning from those people certainly has been critical for me. Um,
Yeah. It's
what
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fascinating to learn about the history of this space, which is, just a whole other conversation.
Dude, Check out this book. It's called Smoke Signals.
Okay.
This thing is written by Martin Lee, who runs Project CBD, and I mean he goes into the whole history of what's happened and where we are today, and it's a crazy, in-depth, dense book, but really nice.
Awesome. I appreciate that recommendation. I'll definitely check that out. I'm wondering what excites you most about the industry for this coming year?
uh, everything, everything. I guess the momentum that we're seeing is really what excites me. Momentum across the board, from policy reform to decriminalization to finding more and more smart people jumping into space. I love that. This industry needs talented, smart people. So the more that are interested in it and do the proper due diligence, there's more than enough room for everyone at the table. So uh, that is kind of what I'm really excited about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on the flip side, what's your biggest concern or some of your concerns for the industry?
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is people have been doing what they've been doing for a long time, right? And habits are really hard to break, and switching and transitioning to more scalable solutions can often be scary. I mean, I think anyone that has to update their iOS on their phone is probably one of those things where you're like, oh man, like I don't know if I should upgrade or update, and you're like, dude, there's like security flaws. Of course you need to update. Like it's just the way it is. So I think the biggest concern I have is, for people that really want to have going forward, have a scalable business to ensure that they're using the right tools to for them to scale their business in 2016 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that, I find really interesting seeing, the tech world come into cannabis. It's like these people who have been in the business for years aren't used to having access to tools like this
Yeah.
because no one had the cannabis world in mind. So it's definitely a mindset shift that's occurring.
Oh
But
yeah, and I mean these are all new tools. It's all mobile. It can be a lot very foreign to people, especially with security, right? People want to know that their data is safe. People want to know that they're not on some sort of list or stuff like that. Um, so we pay a lot of attention to that and to make sure that everything is private, everything is secure, and HIPAA compliant servers. Um, yeah, there's a lot that's changing, and we're gonna look back on this and be like, wow, that was just a crazy pivotal moment of change. So we're that's what concerns me, but also what excites me to build for it.
that's awesome. So how, in your opinion, can people who love cannabis better serve the movement or, contribute to end cannabis prohibition?
Um, I mean, to get involved, to participate. We were touching upon Burning Man earlier, right? And one of the principles is participation, and the participation in this movement is about voting. It's about sharing your thoughts, saying that you support legalization, and really to understand the reasons why. It's not just for so everyone can legally smoke in public areas or in the comfort of home. It's about decriminalization, right? It's about social justice. If you were black or if I were black, we're like 60% more likely to be arrested and put in jail, and more devastating that, like after getting out, your prospects of going to college or prospects of getting a job are like done for possessing marijuana, right? There are resource issues. Look at how much money is spent from the government and the states and the local authorities from like battling the war on drugs when clearly it hasn't worked. And
Right.
we look at Colorado as an example. They thought like, oh my God, everyone's going to be smoking pot and it's going to be terrible, but it's totally opposite. They had one of the best years ever in terms of crime going down. They have more resources and tax revenue than they know what to do with. Um, they have a lot of people thriving in this business and creating jobs. So when you participate, it's really important to know how you're participating and why you're participating.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, especially with elections coming up next year,
Yeah,
cannabis is going to be a huge issue. And the people who represent the culture, who are a part of this culture, we need to, have the talk track down and be able to speak intelligently about, why we need to make change here. So I think you're
yeah.
spot on. Along those lines, I'm wondering, what do you wish people outside of cannabis culture or people who have no familiarity with cannabis or, at all, what do you wish they knew about cannabis?
That's an interesting question. I think there's a lot of stereotypes out there of who smokes and who doesn't smoke and all of that. I think when you look at culture, it's primarily been the stoner types that have affiliated and say, hey, I smoke and all of that. There's still a ton of people out there that haven't come out, that haven't necessarily said, hey, I smoke, or I, medicate with cannabis, or, I enjoy, at the end of the evening, taking a puff to relax. So I think people outside the cannabis culture just really need to think about it's not just stoner types. Everybody smokes pretty much. I mean, it's out there. So it's accepting that, it's looking at it as a lens of people aren't just smoking to get high. People are smoking to relieve pain. People are smoking to relax, to treat chronic conditions. There's a lot of great use cases for it, not only on the recreational side, but really on the medical side for people. And I think as they dive in and they see the data and the education, and to come open, like to just look at it with a rational mind, I think they're gonna be surprised about what this plant can do, and also the people behind it are great. They're fantastic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to help educate not only our community, but hopefully people who aren't in the community who, will be examining this issue as it becomes bigger on the public sphere. I'm wondering if you have any last words for the people, or, if you want to share anything exciting that you're working on that's coming up. The floor is yours.
No, I think that nothing much besides, check out getmeadow.com. It's, send us feedback, send us your questions. Those are the things that we love. We'd love to hear from prospective patients or customers or just people that are curious about cannabis. It helps us get a pulse of what people are feeling out there. So, there's a really great quote from Steve D'Angelo, who runs Harborside out here in Oakland. It's one of the biggest dispensaries in the country, and he says, "Out of the shadows and into the light." And we've kind of taken that and it's like a nice mantra. So come out, affiliate, get involved. There's a lot of great stuff happening. It takes people. It takes critical mass. It takes enlightened people too. So come on board.